So if we go out of it and we want to check the logs directly without knowing where the logs are located, and then we just go through some of the recent logs. So we can use click on the view logs, and then we click the number. Like I want to see the VM kernel log, so I press 2. So you can see here, it's gonna give me the number of logs by pressing down arrow key, or we can use the page down, page up for the whole pages to be moved up or moved down. In order to get out of this particular thing, you can press Q, so you're gonna be get out of that particular logging interface. So similarly, you can use from 1 through 6 numbers, different logs, and they are the most important logs for any ESXi host that you can look into. And you can see here at the 4th section, that is a management agent. One of the management agent that you can look into is the hosting, right? That I have already explained in my whiteboarding. And the similar one, the second one is the vSphere Virtual Center agent, which is a vPXA, and it is also the same. But the most important logs are these are the 6 logs that you can see here. Now, if you want to see what is the license this ESXi host is using, and what are the keys this ESXi host is aligned with its self-sign or aligned certificate, so you can see the thumbprint of that particular certificate as well, along with the license number, right? And you can also reset your ESXi host all configuration to the freshly deployed ESXi host as well, but be very careful if you do this. Ultimately, it's going to be disconnecting from the vCenter server. You need to redo, you need to delete the objects of the vCenter server, and you need to reattach this ESXi host to the vCenter server. Attachment of the ESXi host with the vCenter server is the next step we are going to talk about later in this case. Thank you very much for listening to me. That was actually the detailed overview for the ESXi host, local ESXi host DCUI based configuration, and we have also discussed the SSH stuff as well. And now we are going to talk about the graphical user interface, which is the GUI for ESXi host. Now, in this interface of the ESXi host, we're going to talk about how you can look into the ESXi host provided environment to do the basic configuration using graphical user interface. Okay, so you can see here, people, that we have got the web URL FQDN of the ESXi host here. And this particular URL is the one that you're going to use normally whenever you're going to install the ESXi host. You're going to provide the IP address or the URL if it is DNS resolvable, and it's going to come up with this username and password. Here, the similar username as you usually log into through the DCUI, you need to provide, and this is something that you're going to provide the password, and it is going to be then logged in here. So you can see on the top right corner the ESXi host client is mentioned. That's going to actually briefly tell you that you are now connected through one of the graphical user interface that is dedicated to the single ESXi host. Here it has got the host level configuration information that the ESXi host with this FQDN is having the vSphere version 8, and it is up from last how many number of days. You can shut it down, you can reboot, you can refresh the screen, right? And you can do further actions by clicking on this. You can see that you can create a virtual machine, you can do the similar actions, you can turn on, turn off the services, like these are the 2 services which are enabled, by the way, but you can disable them as well. You can exit, you can put the ESXi host into maintenance, or if it is already in maintenance, you need to put that host out of the maintenance, just like I click here. So the host is going to be out of the maintenance, and you can see here that's the green check here now. The ESXi host is now ready to spin up any virtual machines. Once the ESXi host is in the maintenance mode, you cannot turn on, or you can not use any of the resources on top of the ESXi host except to upgrade its hardware, downgrade the hardware, get the host out of the cluster. So we use the maintenance mode in different scenarios, but most of the time it is purposely used for maintenance of the host, relevant to storage or CPU or memory, right? Then you can see here, if you just scroll down, it's gonna give you the idea about the hardware that you're having at the moment with the ESXi host, like CPU, memory, any storage that is available. With the network configuration, you can see here there are multiple different network cards available now at the moment. You can see there are multiple VM kernels are configured, and how many number of network cards are installed. It's also going to be the part of it that you can see here, and there are 4 network adapter cards, 4 adapters, right? And you can see here it's a performance oriented graphical presentation of the ESXi host relevant to the CPU and memory. Then some system information about the ESXi host, when what software versions have been installed, right? And the below one is a recent task. Whichever you do is going to be listed here in the recent tasks. You can hide this task bar, or you can also navigate. You can hide the navigation pane as well. So as you can see here, it's just hidden. You can also hide it, minimize it, right? So you can go for the host, you can go for the services, you can go for the performance stuff, or if you want to click here, so navigation bar gonna appear once again, and you just click on manage to look into what license, and within that license what features you can use. You can assign the license directly by using this host client, remove the license as well, or any relevant actions that you can have, assign or remove the similar stuff, right? You can see the number of packages installed within this ESXi host and what else you can install, right? So you can install other updates as well locally to this relevant ESXi host, but this is not necessarily needed on an individual host, because if you're having a big environment having 100+ ESXi hosts, so installing each and every ESXi host individually is not the good practice. So in that case, you require vCenter server capabilities. In a single ESXi host services, there are numerous services. Those are by default disabled or stopped, and some of the services are running. You can see here. You can search for the services, like I want to search for the SSH service, and it's going to search for it, and it shows you whether it is running or not. And you can actually hold on a minute. You just click on this. You can see here. You can stop it. You can restart it, right? Or you can do the similar things from the actions as well. Or you can go with the policy start and stop with the host, with the firewall, manually. So normally start and stop with the host means whenever the host is going to restart it, it is going to either, if it is started, it's going to be started. If it is stopped, it remains stopped, even if the ESXi host is restarted, right? So you can define the actions in this way, and in this case as well. Similarly, security and users. You can create the local user accounts here by going into users, the navigation, sub-navigation pane. You click add user, and you're going to define the username and password and enable SSH for this user or not. So then you're going to click add. Similarly, these are the local users, local to that ESXi host. And you can assign rights to that role as well. There are some built-in roles available, you can see here, or you can create another role with a custom roles and services as well. And you can define the role name, and you can select the number of privileges this particular role is going to be aligned with, and you can assign this particular role to any available user, right? So there's something that you can do. And for the authentication purposes, you see here that you can, if you have your ESXi host got domain joined, which is going to be taught in more detail, so you can even go with domain giant option. You need to provide the domain name, username and password of the admin username and password, and you click on join domain, which is going to be then the part of domain joining stuff. We usually use domain joining for different purposes. Like for example, if we are going to configure NFS data store, and the NFS data store is based out of Microsoft Windows. So Microsoft Windows authentication and authorization platform is Active Directory. So we require Active Directory domain join. In another situation, we are going to create the lockdown mode option for 100 plus number of ESXi hosts. So we need to create only one user account in Active Directory. Domain join ESXi hosts are going to use that user account as an exception user, and you don't need to create multiple times the same user in different ESXi hosts in this case, and that can be considered as the exception users in this case, right? So you can add those exception users by clicking on add exception users, and it's going to talk about that which user is, and you can use that domain UPN, like your username at your domain. So you can use your UPN, and you can add that particular user account here, and it can be used in this particular case. You can do the edit settings to enable or disable the lockdown mode. What by default it is disabled, you can see here. It could be strict, it could be normal. In case of strict lockdown mode, you're going to disable the DCUI interface. But if you go with the normal lockdown mode, it's going to disable the local shell of that ESXi. But before you enable any of the lockdown mode on the ESXi host, it is strongly recommended that you create the exception users list here first, and only then you would be in a better position to enable the lockdown mode. Because if you haven't got the users there and you're doing the lockdown mode enable, it's gonna have no use in this case. Okay, so it's gonna let you know about the number of hardware that is installed within your ESXi host in terms of PCI devices or power management devices, or any network adapter card that is a part of it. So you're gonna see the hardware, and under the system, it's gonna talk about the various different services running within this ESXi host, along with a date and time management, which is very much important. That is needed by the NTP server as well. So NTP services are actually needed to be configured here for the ESXi host feature. Why? Because you're going to have the common date and time in terms of log management. It's very much important. You can also look into monitor to see the health statistical information in terms of CPU utilizations and memory utilizations and network notifications or utilizations. So you can see all these limited sets of monitoring stuff. For the enhanced and customized monitorings, you require vCenter server. How many number of virtual machines are running here? You can see here. You can turn on, turn off the virtual machines. You can delete or attach the virtual machines or the disks as well. How many number of storages, local storages are available. You can create a new data store as well. By default, it uses the VMFS data store, and you can connect with the remote data stores as well, but it requires vCenter. Without vCenter, remote data stores are difficult to manage here, right? So these are the high-level overview for your graphical user interface, and you can then log out of it. And if we just go into settings, so you can see here the visual effects that you can have, right? Look at this. So enable visual effects, show only recent objects, welcome message. You want to define the welcome message, right? What language this particular graphical user interface supports, so you can define depending on your available downloaded version of your language support, right? And normally we just simply go to log out, and we're going to log out of it. So that was the generic introduction to the different interfaces of ESXi host that you can have. You can also use, if you have enabled SSH, so you can enable your terminal and you can connect to the ESXi host as well by enabling or by using SSH stuff you can use for remote terminals, empty putty as well. As you can see here, I'm just clicking on the empty putty, and you need to provide the username and the IP address or the FQDN. So for example, I choose this FQDN, and there you go. I choose the FQDN and I click open. So you can see here that it has just been connected to the ESXi host, and it's already logged into. So if SSH is disabled, you cannot log in, and it's going to give you the error in this case. So that's all for your lesson, which has provided you detailed information about the local ESXi host configuration, different components, integrations, and we discussed the and you can see here that was the demonstration I have practically provided you for a direct console user interface, the command line interface, or you go with the graphical user interface. And in the next lesson, we're going to talk about the vSphere client, how your vCenter server is going to connect with the ESXi host, and you can do a lot more different things. And you're going to see the difference that the host client has got the limited options in terms of capability, and if we talk about in comparison to the vSphere client. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope you enjoyed the session with the practical demonstrations. Stay tuned. We're going to come up with now next lesson going to be about the vCenter server and its capabilities.